reminds me of one of my favorite Seinfeld episodes where George wanted to be a Civil War buff, and what does it take to be a buff?
Welcome to the Political Party Pooper Playbook. And if you thought all we did was sit around thinking up ways to poop on empty suit politicians, well, you'd be half right. Okay, welcome to episode 7 of the P4B podcast. We have a guest, as you can see. He'll be joining us in just a second. We're at 7 out of 10 episodes on P4B over at the Revolt. We're 6 for 10, and there's a reason I mentioned that is when I first started getting interested in podcasting and putting this program together, I listened to a guy named Chris Hutchins, super successful investment banker, has had several careers. He's bought and sold, created and sold businesses. And he's gone full-time podcasting. And he analyzed the market. And he said, if you do 10 podcasts in 10 weeks, one podcast a week for 10 weeks, and you've been published in the last 10 days, you're in the top 4% of podcast producers in the world. And I'm doing that twice. When I first heard it, I thought, hey, I could do that. That's easy. I had no idea how tough it is to crank out a podcast a week, plus do newsletter and cross posts, engage. It keeps you really busy. So I think when I hit 10 weeks, I'm going to combine the two sites. I'll pull the Revolt in under P4B. I'll keep the Revolt content free. And that way there's good communication going on. The P4B will be mostly paid content. The newsletters will probably be free also. With that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ron Corey. We've known each other since my older brother Tom was in kindergarten.
Wow.
60 years almost. Just shy of like 59 years.
59, yep.
And our lives have bounced off of each other now and then, intersected now and then. We have a lot of interests that are similar, including in the pre-show here we were just talking. Ron is interested in a lot of the history here in Virginia. If you are a history buff, you have to come to Virginia because you won't be able to get enough history while you're here. It's just amazing. You got the wilderness, you got Spotsylvania, you've got Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, Manassas, or Bull Run, depending on what side of the Civil War your relatives fought on. Anyway, Ron, welcome aboard. And
Thanks,
do you have any questions?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. This is quite. It's my first. I think my first venture into an actual podcast. Have a little bit of background. In fact, Matt, I don't even know if you know that I've been a movie extra over the last few years.
Yes.
You can probably see me, although it's really quick, right across with Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman '84, and with Beau Bridges in an episode of Homeland. So I kind of do that on the side. But so this is my first venture into actual podcasting, though. So I'm happy that you invited me. And Matt, you're right. We go back, as you said, back to 1963 or so. I know Matt's brother Tom quite well. I remember Tom as being a from grade school, kind of an introspective kind of a guy, but funny at the same time. So that's kind of what I remember about Tom from, as you said, kindergarten through grade school. We went to a St. Louis school in Yeadon together, and I think we kind of went our separate ways after that. I went to St. Joe's Prep. I don't know if Tom went to Monsignor Bonner.
He went to Bonner. Yeah.
Bonner,
we weren't beautiful people. We didn't go to St. Joe's.
And had I not gotten a scholarship, I wouldn't have gone either, believe me, because my folks couldn't. I don't think anybody in Yaden could afford St. Joe's Prep at the time, so you had to make had to get a little money together.
Well, a
in order to do it.
scholarship says something. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was great, and I can thank the Gino. Actually, I remember Matt. God bless you. The Gino Corporation, who had scholarships for kids that were, I'll say, I don't want to say lower income, but lower to middle income, and of course had to have the grades also. So I thank Gino Marchetti and the good folks at Gino's for getting me into St. Joe's Prep at the time. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Gino Marchetti, old Gino's.
Gino Marchetti, which segue into our current Eagles team.
That's right.
I am so, as excited as I was in 2017, because obviously they hadn't been there before. This, Matt, to me, may very well be the best Eagles football team I've ever seen.
It's amazing.
It is stacked. I mean, not only the starters, but the folks coming in on the second string. And I've also talked to a number of folks about being the best, possibly best Eagles team of all time. But is it the best Philadelphia team of all time? I'll tell you. We'll talk about that after next Sunday.
Yeah,
they have to win the Super Bowl first. Should that happen, I think you could probably stack it up there as the best any Philadelphia team of all time. And the reason being, they have everything right now, and you have to, things have to break the right way also. With, for example, Jalen Hurts still on his rookie contract. In order to do that, you can stack the rest of the deck, so to speak. That may not happen a year down the road. In fact, if Hurts wins the Super Bowl, they're going to have to pay him, I don't know, $45 million a year, the issue with the NFL is that there's a salary cap, which actually I kind of like in a way, because everybody is playing from the same playing field versus the MLB. That if you want to pay the money, if you're in New York or LA or maybe even Philly, spend a lot of money these days. You can do that. But what the problem there is, the teams that are in the smaller markets have no shot. So that's a big disparity between football and baseball. But anyway, back to the best team. I've talked to my friends, my brothers, and all about these best teams. The only ones that I can think of are that might even come close in other sports would be the '82 Sixers, if you recall them, with Julius Erving and Moses Malone. Great team there. Can't argue with that. Then you had your scrappy Phillies teams back in 1980 and 2008, and even last year's team. Which great team, but certainly doesn't, in my estimation, match up to the greatest of all time. The '82 Sixers might come pretty close.
I used to say that the Phillies were the hardest working team last year.
Scrappy. Yeah, you remember the teams with Pete Rose and
but those last 3 games they mailed it in, man. They were asleep. It was tough to watch.
Yeah,
after that big buildup.
Well, and they lost to the better team. I mean, there's no question about it. They had the pitching, they had the bullpen. This year, I think, and we'll talk about that a little bit after the Eagles, but they are coming pretty close. Now, going back to these greatest teams, the greatest team that I recall, only because I was a part of it, actually was at the Stanley Cup final game, was the 74 Flyers.
Yeah.
And if you remember, Matt, that was the same team that a year or two later beat the heck out of the Russians. And Ed Van Impe hit the Russian over the head with a stick, and the bench is emptied, and the Russians left, and everything. So talk about scrappy. That probably was the scrappiest of the scrappy, would be that Flyers team.
The Russians thought they were tough until they met Philadelphia.
Absolutely. And, as scrappy as they weren't overall a superstar team. I mean, they had Bobby Clark, they had Bernie Parent, but they just worked hard.
Yeah.
They just worked hard. This, going back to this Eagles team, they are stacked. I mean, which makes me so excited. Like I said, as much as I love that 17 team, that was a little bit of lightning in a bottle. They went from Wentz to Nick Foles, and everything just caught. And of course, you had the Tom Brady drop pass and the fumble and all that stuff. So as great as they were, they caught lightning in the bottle. This team that we're looking at this year may be the greatest Philadelphia team of all time, and I'm not going to say for sure until after Sunday. And I mean, I will be super disappointed if they lose because I do think this year they have the better team. 17, they didn't have the better team. They got some breaks.
Yeah.
And
There's a
and
chemistry. There's a chemistry at work in this team too, and
Absolutely.
I owe that, I think, to Hertz and Kelsey.
Yep.
They have a rapport between each other. You can see it on the sidelines, especially pregame. It's
Yep.
like those two are the last two to talk to each other before they get on the field.
Absolutely.
And
even Sirianni, who, there was a big question mark when he first came on board. But the young guy, what's he going to do? They seem to love him too. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's all just working. It's all working together, and they have this year they had the record for the most sacks in NFL history, and
yeah.
it's amazing. It's just amazing the way they obviously don't forget about Howie Roseman, because he put all this together, and a few years ago they were ready to hang the guy, and he just came back big time. If you remember, they put him in the corner there for a year or so, and he apparently went across the country, went over the world, investigating other sports teams and learning and reading and all that stuff. And man, he has done a fantastic job, unbelievable job. In fact, now that being said, they win the Super Bowl, and as I said, if Hurts gets his big bucks, he has more of a challenge now to keep at least the core of the team together, and it's almost impossible with the cap.
Yeah, and Philly's not famous for building winning dynasties.
Right.
Usually when they get a winning team, they blast it all out for profit, which, hey, it's their team. They can do anything they want,
And if you remember going back to the Phillies, they hung on to those guys like Utley a couple years, Utley and Ryan Howard, a year or two too long, and they just completely fell apart. So you got to know when to hold up and when to fold up. And I think Houston can do that, especially he has 2 first-round draft picks this year. So I mean, they're going to pick a need, whether it be not quarterback. They don't need a quarterback, cornerback, safety, or even possibly a running back because they're going to probably lose Miles Sanders, which is a shame. But again, you can't pay everybody. You just can't.
Right. So, and again, like you said, it's a small market. We're not LA, we're not New York. And if you build a blue chip team and then one of your guys says, pay me way more than the team is worth,
right,
you got to let them go. You got to cut them loose.
And my fear, and it is a little bit of fear, is that Hurts, should he win the Super Bowl, is probably going to ask for Deshaun Watson money, which is I don't know, 200 million plus guaranteed and all that stuff. I mean, that's the problem. There is can't pay everybody, so you're paying your quarterback, but that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt Watson's team. You can't pay everybody, so you pay one person 200 million. That's that 200 million less for the rest of the
now
team.
You're paying your running back minimum wage.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, there's only so much you can do there. So anyway, that talk there of possibly the best team of all time. So again, I rank this year's Eagles team, possibly the Sixers of '82, going back to the Flyers of '74, and that winning the Stanley Cup. And I'm showing my age a little bit now. I was at the final Stanley Cup game at the Spectrum in '74, and along with that, plus I'm trying to think of a couple of things that are just unbelievable. I will never forget. That's one of them, and maybe Live Aid might be number 2 on that list too. So some of the things
Did you go to Live Aid?
I did. Yeah, I mean things that I've seen
incredible.
In person, the Flyers winning the Cup and Live Aid are my two greatest. Now, as much as I would love to go to the Super Bowl next Sunday, $7,000 a ticket is what it's going for right now. And
what's the price written on them? Like $125?
No, it's actually $1,000.
Really?
It was $1,000 face value, and I wouldn't mind paying $1,000, $1,500, maybe a couple grand, but not $7-10 grand, which is what they're going for.
Yeah,
So,
I do have a problem with ticket service agents for that reason.
well, that whole issue with Ticketmaster
Yeah,
and
you buy up incredible chunks. What I compare it to, we used to have a timeshare,
yep,
and it was awesome. It was really cool. We were all over the world on that thing.
right,
And then we started one year, we were trying to find a cool place to go, and we couldn't get anything. We couldn't get anything anywhere. We could go to a little crappy timeshare in Orlando or something.
right.
And I found out that Hyatt and Marriott bought massive blocks of timeshares.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So instead of competing, person to person, you're now competing with a major corporation to try to get 2 weeks vacation in the
Wow.
summertime.
Wow.
So we ended up dumping it.
I didn't
But-
realize that. And maybe that's why everybody seems to be trying to dump those timeshares now. Maybe that's part of the reason. I don't know. I didn't know.
Well, it is. Well, the other thing is the blank check effect.
Yep.
They do make promises. Oh, it'll only go up a little bit per year, for your maintenance and your fees. But that's not the case. It
Right.
jumps, and it gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
And this timeshare cancellation is just the back end of the scam.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to give up that week's obligation, and you're going to pay the timeshare cancellation guy. I don't know. I'm sure it ranges for whatever they can get out of you, a couple $1,000s.
Wow.
He's simply going to turn around and hand it back to the guy who sold it to you to begin with.
Yep.
Who now has something he could put on Groupon in the off season, or let Marriott buy another block or whatever, and he's going to continue to make money from it.
Right.
Or they'll turn around and sell it to the next person that's doing the whatever they call timeshare now, fractionalized rent.
It's very similar to the whole Ticketmaster mess, where the bots are buying up the tickets and
Right.
selling them on the market. And I can remember, in fact, I just had this conversation with someone back in this, I guess, early '70s. Springsteen tickets or whatever used to sit out, sleep outside of a Wanamaker's.
Right.
And wait till the ticket agency opened up, and then if you were lucky enough in line, you got the good seats. That's the way it used to be. Now, either you are lucky, and you win some kind of a lottery, or you pay quadruple the price for the ticket.
Right. Within seconds of the tickets going on sale.
Yep.
And it should be, me versus you in line at the ticket office. That to me is legit.
Right.
The allowing people to buy huge blocks for resale, to me, is just scalping. Scalping's always been an illegal activity.
Yeah, well, basically they're doing it. I guess you can call it legal scalping, but that's exactly what they're doing. Exactly what they're doing. Yeah, and that's a shame.
And kind of sucks a little of the joy out of it,
It does. And now the Phillies, going back to World Series, I tried to get World Series tickets with the Phillies. They actually had a lottery. Hey, if you're lucky enough to win it, you win it. So I mean, that's maybe not too bad. It's a little different than the kind of the Ticketmaster thing with the bots. At least you're, I guess, on an even playing field in a lottery situation with the Phillies.
And if you're in a lottery, you're paying retail price of the ticket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfectly fair. I think that's legit.
The folks that have, and rightly so. I mean, I used to have I couldn't get there, being in Virginia too often, but I used to have a partial ticket plan with the Phillies. And the folks that have the full tickets or the partial ticket plan get the first dibs on the World Series. And that's fine. I mean, they paid their dues all year long. So I have no problem with that. So there are better ways to do it. And Ticketmaster is not the way. I wish they would. I actually, as much as I like government, to get off the backs of everything, I wish they would kind of push that Ticketmaster thing. I know they're talking about it a little bit right now.
Well, for sure, the leagues would have to get involved.
Yep.
That would be the most appropriate thing for the leagues to say, we have fans and you're not a fan. You're a bot. You're a middleman that we didn't hire.
Yep.
So if our fans want tickets, our fans can buy tickets. And if you want to give a small markup, a service fee, knock yourself out.
Right.
Buy the tickets and then sell them.
Right.
It'll be more appropriate, I think, for the leagues to do that.
Yeah, and as we said, the Super Bowl tickets, even though $1,000 is high, You can't find one for under $7 grand if you wanted to go. I mean,
That's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's obviously that's not counting your, your airfare to get out there and your hotel and whatever else. You're talking probably 20 grand by the time you're done everything if you're going to take a couple people, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I probably will never see a Super Bowl. I mean, right now, my whole income for my podcast is $72 a year.
There you go.
I'm flying, baby. I should go out and buy a car or something, and show them that as my income.
That's funny. So,
but yeah, that was, I mean, everything we just talked about, especially when you're talking about the comparing the teams. That's the big reason I asked you to be on this week.
Yep.
Is because you and Mike Luongo have almost a encyclopedic memory of everything that's happened in Philly all these years.
Well, this goes back to as a kid, Matt. I used to get the Philadelphia Bulletin, if you remember, Bulletin or the
right.
Or the,
yeah.
And every day when the Phillies played, they used to cut out the box score, and I posted the box scores up on my wall. So I had 162 games on my wall at year end, watching how each player would go from week to week or day to day or whatever. So that kind of got me started. So I mean, I've been a sports fan ever since, and we talked about the Eagles. I'm excited also about this year's Phillies team. We have got Trey Turner, the shortstop, who is probably the premier shortstop in baseball.
Right.
We have Real Muto, who's probably the best catcher in baseball. They've improved their pitching staff. They've improved the bullpen. In fact, the pitcher, who probably, I'm guessing, will maybe be the fifth or maybe sixth starter this year, is a guy by the name of Andrew Painter, who Major League Baseball, all of your books and everything says he is the best rookie pitcher in baseball.
Wow.
So we're stacked now. We talked about it. The problem with baseball is, as stacked as we are, New York is spending double our money.
Right.
The Braves are spending at least our money, if not more than that. So you're not competing. You're not really on an even playing field, because New York New York and LA obviously can spend millions, billions if they want to. So you have your haves and your have-nots. The Phillies are have right now, only because they've decided to spend some money, but they're still far from New York and LA as far as money spent. So, like I said, in football, everybody is somewhat on an even playing field because you have a cap. You can't go over the cap. In baseball, technically you have a cap, but if you have money, you can blow the cap away. And that's what some of these teams are doing. The Phillies have done it a little bit. They've gone a little bit over the cap, so they have what they call the luxury tax. They're a little bit over the luxury tax. The Mets and the Dodgers have blown that luxury tax away. They're spending as much on the tax as they are the salary. So that's the problem with baseball. I think the Phillies have, again, we're talking best teams. The Eagles might be the best team I've ever seen. The Phillies may be the best Phillies team coming up, and knock wood. But that being said, they're probably not the best team. I mean, the Astros were better last year.
And it seems to me baseball, when all is said and done, ends up being less predictable than any other sport.
Yes, absolutely. Look how the Phillies barely snuck into it and wound up almost winning it all.
Yeah, it's a game of failure.
Yep.
It's you try to attrite your own failure versus the other guy's failure.
Well, and if you're a 250 hitter, you're a decent hitter.
Yeah.
You're striking out or popping up 3 out of 4 times.
Right.
So that's what you're dealing with in baseball. If you're good, if you're 1 out of 4.
Yeah, Babe Ruth, the years he hit his record runs, he also hit record strikeouts. Same years.
Yeah.
Oh no.
What's that?
I thought I was logged into my regular Zoom. So this will end up being a chopped up thing.
Oh, okay.
This one will end in a few minutes, and when it does, we'll just restack.
We do. Okay, that's fine.
And I'll I'll put it all together later.
No problem.
But what happened was the other night I was working with Austin, the history guy, and I just got that same window saying this your freebie ends in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I started paying these bastards 2 days ago. So
Oh, geez.
evidently, even though it has my name on it as if I'm logged in.
You might be on the different Zoom, like a non-paid Zoom versus the paid
Yeah,
Zoom.
I'm gonna have to back out completely and then like reopen Zoom from Raw if I can. This opened from the startup screen, so
Yeah.
I'll have to figure that out real quick. But we do have a few
to.
minutes left, and
Yeah.
the one last question I had about the Super Bowl is, what do you think of Mahomes? Is going to be healthy?
I think I'm gonna be tough on the guy here. I think he's milking it a little bit.
Could be.
I think he's milking. I'm not denying he's hurt, but I think if you watch the last Chiefs game, he looked pretty darn good when he was playing, and then we kind of limp off the field.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I don't want to knock the guy too much. Maybe the adrenaline kicks in when you're playing, and it's starting to hurt when you're walking off the field.
Right.
That being said, I think he'll be fine. I mean, he may not be 100%, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't 90%.
So we actually have to put a contract out on his ankle.
Well, you know what? legally, and I hate to see anybody dirty. They should go after the ankle.
Yeah.
If you're going to tackle a guy, give him a little extra twist in that ankle,
or push him in that direction, minimum, where he has to lean on it.
That's the way it works. Because if you can either knock him out or get him off his game, the Eagles will win by 2 touchdowns. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, that being said, any given Sunday, anybody can win. I think the Eagles are clearly a touchdown team better than the Chiefs. That's just based on, if you look at area to area, quarterback, I'll call that almost even. I'll say that the quarterback's almost even. If you look at the running backs, the defense, the Eagles' offensive and defensive line, which is why I say they may be the best team. That offensive line is awesome.
Yeah,
and I think person for person, the Eagles are clearly a better team. Let's just hope that they're on their game on Sunday.
Yeah, during the season when I would watch, because I couldn't always see the Eagles down here. We don't get it in our market all the time. But I would try to track the teams we were going to play in the next couple of weeks and watch them ahead of time.
I can give you some free ways to get in there, but we'll talk about that off camera.
Okay. Yeah.
To get your Eagles every week.
Yeah, you can coach me offline. Well, a little sidebar.
Yeah.
But there were times where I would see these other teams play and compare to the Eagles and go, "Oh boy, we're going to have a tough time with them because they're so tight and disciplined."
Yep.
I didn't get a whole lot of that last week, so I feel pretty good about the matchup.
The Eagles scare me, if you recall, that those couple weeks where Hurts was out and they were having some issues. I was a little worried that they had peaked too early and were going in the other direction, but they clearly over the last few weeks have turned that around completely. So I'm comfortable that we're back to, if not the best team we saw, the best group we saw all year. If they're not there now, they're pretty darn close. And plus, they're relatively healthy. I mean, they have they're banged up a little bit with Lane Johnson being hurt. He's to talk about a warrior, man. That guy, he needs surgery, and he's out there playing every week, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, they're pretty healthy, which is positive too. And from what I understand, the Chiefs, other than Mahomes, have a couple folks. One of the wide receivers is out, so they have some injury issues too, which certainly can't hurt.
Oh, there you go. Well, we're about down to 5 minutes here. One of the things I did want, 2 things I want to ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
Is the music thing you do every couple of weeks, the 50 years ago.
Yep.
Where do you get that, or did you actually save all those things for 50 years?
It's funny you mention. I had some of them, but I have a good buddy who actually originally lived in Prospect Park, who saved, like I did the sports stuff, saved those every week. He's missing a week or two here and there, but overall we share that WFIL list weekly, posted up on Facebook, and they get some really, really cool comments. And I know I mean, we can go for another hour on music, but 60s, 70s, and 80s music, I'm kind of a connoisseur of that era too. I think after the 80s, I think we kind of lost a little
Gets
bit.
a little lame. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, once the electronic stuff started and disco, uh, your singer songwriters didn't need to singer songwrite anymore because they could just do a lot of that electronically. So
Yeah,
it lost
yeah.
a little bit after the 80s. But that being said, I've won many a trivia contests going back to 60s, 70s, and 80s music. Once after the 80s, I can't recall, but I can't recall what I did yesterday. But I know what we used to do in the 80s. So that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. I'm the same way. I don't know what I had for breakfast, but
Right, right.
but did you catch the Ronstadt thing I did?
I did not. I did not. In fact, I saw. I don't know if you probably saw the documentary on her a couple of years ago that was out.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
I saw the same one. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I do cite that a lot in
Mhm.
the piece, but I'll put a link to it in below the audio and below the video in the comment section and on YouTube. But the other one night I was laying in bed and I got Blue Bayou stuck in my head. And it might
Yep.
have even been on the list that week. That might have been how it snuck in there.
Right.
But I just couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake it for the life of me.
She's missed. I know she's obviously had many health issues recently and really can't sing anymore, which is very sad.
Yeah, well, actually, she died a short time back.
Are you? She did?
Yeah.
No, I think I'd have to look that up. I thought she was still. I mean, I wasn't aware of that. If it did happen, I think she's
I'll
still living.
double check. I'll double check. But
I know she's not. I know she's not well, but I didn't hear that.
no, she had Parkinson's.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and it got really serious. Her decline was really serious.
Okay.
But I had the song stuck in there.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think of 1,000 different things to get it out because I was like tossing and turning all night, And then I realized that's what I should be doing. I should be writing about this.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So I did a little, a lead in the day's news and stuff like that. And then I dedicated like a half hour of video and comments, and Substack, you'd link directly to YouTube. So it's all there in one package.
Oh, cool.
And her career was amazing.
What might interest you, I just watched a 3-part documentary. I don't know if you have Paramount Plus, but there's a 3-part documentary called Sometimes When We Touch, which is the old, if you remember, the old Dan Hill song. It's a 3-part documentary just on the music of I guess it starts in the 70s, well, a little bit of the 60s maybe, the 60s, 70s, and 80s music. And it's really well done. So I invite you to check that out if you get the chance.
Yeah, I will check that out. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Before we get into wine and whatever else I have lined up here, a little bit of politics I want to ask you about. We're at a minute 14 and we won't have time to really get into anything heavily.
Yeah, let's do part 2 with wine and politics and 60s and Yaden and all that stuff, and then we should be good to go.
Yeah. So I'll lock this out. I'll try to get logged in properly with Zoom, and we'll crank it again. Okay, so we're back with Ron. I don't know if I've worked out my issues with Zoom. But I got to tell you, Ron, you missed your calling, man. You should have been a sportscaster or something. You're a natural at this.
This has been a lot of fun, great time, and it's funny you mention that because I always say that as I think I mentioned in part 1 there, I got a little bit of movie buff in my background and did some. I still do some extra. In fact, a little while ago they called me to be an extra in the Walking Dead, but I didn't want to be typecast. That is a true story. They actually did call me. I was unavailable at the time, but so I did Wonder Woman 84, and I did, as I mentioned, I did Homeland. So and one more, and I'll have my SAC card. So
yeah, I did extra work in. Well, whenever they made that miniseries Washington with Barry Bostwick, Patty Duke Aston,
Yeah.
I took a month's leave, and it was the coolest experience I've ever had, without a doubt.
It is just, I get the biggest kick out of just watching what's going on around me. In fact, I was lucky enough when did Homeland. I don't know if you're a Homeland fan or ever watched it, but Claire Danes had a scene, and she was a kind of a schizophrenic, I guess you would say, and in working for the CIA. But anyway, she had a scene where they had electrodes, obviously they were fake, but attached to her head, and they were giving her allegedly, shock therapy.
Right.
And I watched her literally for 2 hours, I would say, filming about a 5-minute scene. And it was, I mean, talk about brutal. I mean, she
real physical.
act like she was getting shock treatment almost for 2 hours. And I was able to look at that, and that kind of thing. Just, it is so incredible to watch. You don't realize when you're watching a movie or a TV show the amount of time that goes into a 5-minute scene. It's amazing.
Well, I'm the best example of that. I was in 50 scenes in that movie. It's I think a 5 or 6 part miniseries. I watched every minute of it. Everybody was watching with me. And I think it's like part 3, I was able to go, there I am. Oh,
Yep.
That was it. Everything else, it was too far away. I'd be part of a large group.
Very similar to me in Wonder Woman and Homeland. I saw myself, but it was, a whole day's work.
It's a flash. Yeah. But I spent one night, we were night filming in Ridley Park.
Mm-hmm.
And Buzz Kulik, the director, he's one of these improvised guys. You have the whole thing set up. You're going through the things. He goes, "Oh, wait, do this." So, a 1-hour standby becomes a 7-hour standby.
Oh yeah.
So I sat in a barn with Patty Duke Aston, just me and her.
Oh, that is cool.
For like 5 hours one night.
Wow.
We talked about everything.
That's amazing.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I talked to her about her early career, about John Aston. It was amazing. We had so much fun.
Yeah, that's cool. That is really cool. So I mean, I always had fun with doing those kinds of things, and this is almost natural to sit down, Matt, and talk to you. I appreciate it, and it goes back. I guess we're maybe segueing back into our Yaden days. So goes back to and I remember Tom also when we were at St. Louis. I was in about 5th grade, maybe 5th grade, I guess it was, and we did a play, The Music Man. I don't know if you recall that.
Yep.
Tom
I was going to mention that, but go ahead.
Tom was in it, and of course, Mrs. Pinto, Babs Pinto, was the director. And if you look up Babs Pinto or Barbara Pinto, she had quite a career in stage and TV, and she was in quite a few TV shows, quite a few Broadway shows. But anyway, she probably started her career with us in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, putting on the Music Man. And to this day, Matt, when I talk to people from Yaden, they say, "I remember you from the Music Man." And we're talking, 1960, what was it? Maybe 67, 68.
You were in the quartet with Tom, right? You were part of the quartet.
No, Tom was in the quartet. I was Winthrop.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I was the person with the lisp, lisp, so to speak. And Gary, Indiana, if you remember the song.
Yeah.
So that got really, I mean, you go back to those days, and that kind of got me started with, I mean, I never did it as a career, but, the interest in music and sports and film and all that stuff. It's amazing how your grade school years really can segue into your future in many ways.
Yeah. Well, that's true. And I didn't appreciate back then, being a dumb kid, everything our parents actually did.
Unbelievable.
In terms of involvement, I mean, they were able to get us together and make the Music Man. That alone is a feat.
And we used to practice. I know, Tom, that quartet was not an easy thing for a fifth or 6th grader.
4-part harmony. That was.
And they nailed it. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
They nailed it, and Tom was part of that. And I'm sure he'll never forget that. I mean, it's just I still have every once in a while I'll come across some old pictures and post them on Facebook of those days. And yeah, Yaden was I'm sure a lot of people that grow up say their place was the best. I'm telling you, my brothers, myself, you couldn't have grown up in a better neighborhood, better community in Yaden. And it was the people, everybody watched out for themselves, playing outside until 9 o'clock at night, not having to worry about it. I mean, it was just, and that was, in some respects growing up in the 60s, but we had that community that I don't think can ever be topped. And again, I'm sure other communities feel the same way, but the amount of friends and family and things that I still play cards with, not with Tom, unfortunately, I don't see him too much, but buddies that I went to school in kindergarten with.
Right.
How many people can say that? I don't know.
Right. Well, I'm very jealous of that. My career path took me away.
And to some
decades.
respects, it did me too. Of course, I've been in Virginia for 20 years, but I still get together. Matt, you may know some of these folks: Bob Berg, Steve Smith.
Oh yeah,
Massatellis, and we still get together. I mean, and now our kids are friends with their kids,
right.
And it's just,
and it's been that way for generations. I mean, my dad was on stage in West Catholic with Babs at Pinto.
How about that?
And then all our kids from the Music Man through high school acted together.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, I'm going to try to get Ann on here.
That would be. She's
talk about the old shows. Talk about what she's doing. I want to have her. I want to have her send me some video files to plug in from the crazy COVID stuff she was doing.
I saw her. I guess unfortunately, I think the last time I saw her was at Barbara's
right.
wake. Unfortunately, but she's a trip. She'd be a great person to talk to.
She's a character, but yeah, I mean, and that cohesion, I guess, the West Philly Yaden thing, it's something I really miss. I mean, my boys are in their 40s now.
Yeah, my son's in 30. Yeah,
and they're still hanging around with their kindergarten buddies and their grade school buddies, the ones that survived Upper Darby and didn't end up in prison.
I mean, and there's great, you can talk about the folks that grew up and lived in, Yaden. Hey, I don't know if it was St. Louis or Yaden or whatever, but some very accomplished people grew up in our neighborhood and in Yaden, and you can go to Upper Darby with Todd Rundgren and who else in Upper Darby?
Croce, Jim Croce.
Jim Croce, the woman from, and her name escapes me right now, from Saturday Night Live, that grew up in that area.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name right now.
She did a course on TV, how to speak Philly.
Yeah.
Go to Atlantic City and get a hoagie and have water.
Yeah. And so, I mean, very, very accomplished people in that neck of the woods and that timing. You can. There's quite a group in that area. So,
am I not recording?
Oh,
I am.
We're still on. But you're definitely
just put
on.
A bullet in my head.
But going back to the growing up in Yaden again, great place. I'm talking about 60s kids. I had come up with a list, which I found somewhere along the lines, about the things that grown up in the 60s and how are we still alive. That's what it comes down to. But let me just go over some of them quick. Pregnant women drinking and smoking. That was you just did that in the 60s. No car seats, no car belts, or if they were very crummy, just like that one little piece that used to go across.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, not all cars, when I first started riding in cars, seat belts weren't standard yet. Some had them, some didn't. Ours ended up on the floor with the crumbs on them and the dirt.
Smoking was encouraged in the 60s. I mean, it was, hey, that was the cool thing, smoke away. They had the baby cribs that couldn't keep any baby safe. Trampolines with no nets. Remember those?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There was no such thing as childproofing your house. I mean,
Yeah.
you
No
know,
bicycle helmets, no elbow
nah,
pads.
no bicycle. That was another one, no bicycles, helmets. Of course, walking to school alone, whether it be St. Louis or whatever, you just did that. You walked
That's
a
child
mile.
abuse now.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
here's one for you. Here's one for you. I asked you this before. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Tom showing up in like first grade in a cowboy outfit?
I don't remember. I'm sure it
He hates
happened.
this story. He's
Is that
going to
right?
throw a rock at me for telling this story. But he got a cowboy outfit for Christmas.
Mhm.
And he was going to wear that to school. My mother was going, I don't know. Tom's going, no, it'll be great. It'll be great. So he wears complete cowboy up, the vest and the hat.
Hey, he was ahead of his time. He was identifying as a cowboy.
I'm telling you. But what I was thinking today when we were getting ready to do this was, could you imagine today if a kid showed up with a cowboy outfit with 2 plastic revolvers in the holster?
Yeah, the guns wouldn't work, that's for
He'd
sure.
be on his way to juvie. They'd be having crisis counselors talking to the other students, that have to take, all this counseling and
Oh, that's funny.
apologies to getting on the news, Oh,
Yeah, but again, at that point you didn't think twice. Of course, nuns smacked us around. If you were
oh
bad,
yeah.
just smacked across the face, and we actually, most of us were pretty good. But I can remember the nuns nailing some of the girls. I mean, smacking them big time.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I had one nun. I won't mention names, but it's the reason I hate nuns. But she spent September to almost Christmas knocking the crap out of me and Fred Altieri.
that wouldn't have been
I,
Sister St. Arthur, would it?
no, no, but Sister St. Arthur was my first introduction to real violence. I got a math problem wrong. We were little pictures. You had to match a clown to the hats and a
Right.
bird to the trees. And if you came up where one wasn't matched, that meant there was one too many. We were starting to learn quantities in first grade.
Right.
So I bring my paper up. It's torn in the corner, already that she's pissed off, And she goes, where's this clown's hat? And I went, there's one too many. That was the first time somebody came across the side of my face that made my ear ring.
Oh, we got
Wow.
many a smack, many a golden rule. I remember there was if you remember, Sister Michael Francis, who
Yeah, oh yeah.
used to say, "You're going to feel me, boy," but she had a finger that kind of went in a different direction.
Yeah.
So you never knew who
And
she was
people used to
pointing
make fun of her. I'm talking to you.
And
Oh,
actually,
man.
a couple of years ago, I actually ran into a Sister Regina Bernarda, who was in our, I don't know if you remember, but in
Yeah.
one of our great, she's at, what do you call it, the Immaculata home right now, but she must be in her, I gather she's in her 80s right now, but we had a little discussion a few years back, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
So,
Sister Regina. Yeah, I remember her.
she's still kicking. Yep.
Yeah.
But
I imagine
back to-
Sister St. Arthur's probably still kicking. She's probably about 400 years old now.
she's probably still terrorizing somebody.
Yeah.
But back to those 60s things.
Yeah.
They used to have nobody wore sunscreen. You used to put baby oil on your body. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was stupid. It was downright
Baby
stupid.
oil and iodine. You might as well just ignited yourself.
Mercurochrome, which was very deadly at the time. We know that now. We didn't know it then. It caused kidney problems, cancers, and everything. You used to put it on your
every cut, iodine or mercurochrome.
So I don't know how we're still living. The big thing was, if you remember, Matt, in Yaden, the guy that used to spray the DDT that came through the neighborhood.
We would run through the smoke.
We would run through the smoke, bite through the smoke, and it's like it was like Agent Orange, I guess. I don't know what the heck it was, but I guess some of us are still living, so I guess that's not a bad thing.
Do you remember the new monkey bars they put up at Bell Avenue Field? That it went up like a diamond.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't let a construction worker get on that without a safety line now, and we would be hanging from it.
Now they have these nice soft landings pads and things like. There was none of that then. I mean, they might have had a little, I don't know, some wood or something down.
That one had the thick rubber, which would have felt like falling on concrete anyway.
Right, exactly.
But, I mean, it was a different universe, but I think we
It was.
benefited from it.
There's no question. I have that conversation all the time. Kids are, they've been so sheltered, and of course, COVID's a whole. We could talk about that for years, but it's just not the same. We used to play outside from 8 o'clock in the morning in the summer to, we used to walk or bike to the Aiden Swim Club and come back home 10 o'clock at night.
Right, right.
That's what you did. Now, I mean, you can't leave, and unfortunately, I guess in many cases, you can't leave your kid out for a half hour, or he or she might get stolen. I mean,
Somebody's calling the police.
yeah, it's nuts.
Actually,
Yeah.
I heard an interesting statistic. Per capita, there's fewer kidnappings and things like that happen today than when we were growing up. You didn't hear about it when we were growing
That's
up
right.
because it was only 3 channels and local newspapers.
Right.
Very rarely would a single crime that happened in St. Paul, Minnesota, make it into the news.
Yeah, the media has a lot to do with that, and the Facebook and as good as technology is, I think in many ways it's killing us. So,
It is. It is.
yeah.
And I think that's the reason why parents have become helicopter parents, is this has been drummed into their heads how horrible and dangerous life is.
That's the fear factor.
Yeah. So the kids are denied an opportunity to be stupid on their own.
Yep.
Stupid's supposed to hurt, so
Yep.
you don't do it again. You
Yep.
know? And well, I know I was plenty stupid. We used to try to figure out ways to blow stuff up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Me, Rob Carr, 4-acre, Zut. What was his real name? I forget. But we would go down behind on the tracks behind the athletic field and make bombs out of like 500 firecrackers. We pour the black powder into like molds and plaster, and we set ourselves on fire.
Oh, it was crazy. Probably one of the times in Yaden I got in the biggest trouble was I had one of those M80s. Remember those?
Right.
And lit it and threw it, and it wound up under a person's. It was actually by an apartment and blew up right under a window of an apartment. 2 minutes later, man, those cops were out, and I had to talk myself out of that one.
Oh, you couldn't get away with nothing.
Yeah.
Me and Marty one time went up to Church Lane. We had a box full of water balloons, 2 little kids dragging this box, right? And we put it at Darnell and Church Lane. We put it on the steps of this house. And as the bus would stop, we'd throw it at the bus.
Right? Oh, yeah.
So we're hitting cars. We're doing all kinds of stuff. We're thinking, oh, we're great. We're getting away with murder here. So a bus comes, and as the door opens, we're like, we're going to nail everybody in there. The door opens, we throw the water balloons. It's Mrs. Turk from kindergarten.
My kindergarten teacher. Yep.
I think the mothers in Yaden communicated telepathically because we like smashed all our water balloons. We ran down Darnell to Duncan Avenue, and my mother was on the steps.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
well,
our lives just descended into hell.
Yeah, but you know what? It was a community, and I remember, and I wasn't part of it, but my friends drinking under the bridge there in Yaden, and the next thing you know, the police came out with actually guns, holding up guns to the kids because they didn't know what they were doing at the time.
Right.
One of the kids happened to know the son of one of the police officers, and they said, "All right, just go."
Yeah.
So you knew the community, you knew where. Sometimes you overstepped your bounds, but even if you did, somebody was watching out for you.
Yeah.
And that was the great part about that particular community.
Yeah, it changed a lot. When I came back from my first tour, hadn't been to Yaden in like 2.5, 3 years. It was a totally different environment.
Oh yeah.
Nobody knew anybody.
Right.
All our neighbors had moved.
When was that, man? About what time?
That would 79, 80, 81.
Oh yeah.
Came back.
Well, what happened? We had for the most part, the exodus in the early to mid '70s of folks leaving Yaden and going to out further. Like for example, my family eventually moved out to Springfield, Delaware County. So you had kind of that exodus in I'd say the mid to late 70s, and very, very few people there. In fact, about 6 months ago, I was back to Yate, and I don't know if you were invited, but they had a kind of an open house for St. Louis, and it was actually pretty cool. I was glad to see that the church is still, I'm telling you, I don't know the last time you were there, but exactly the way I remember it.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed one iota, which is fabulous because it's such a beautiful church. And the school, of course, is no longer the school, but I was happy to see that it was purchased by, I think it was the Archdiocese. It's going to now be a
seminary.
Kind of seminary.
Yeah.
And we had a real nice time there. A bunch of people that I knew from St. Louis. They had an open house, and they had a beer out on the in the parking lot.
I saw some of the pictures. Dennis posted the pictures.
Yeah, Dennis Murray. In fact, I think he put it together, or at least helped put it together. And it was really a nice time. They're hoping to make something like that an annual event to be really neat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I know a lot of people don't know this, but Ron Corey is a wine magnate. Now he'll be humble about it. He'll be humble, but at Barrel Oak, when he used to walk into Barrel Oak, everyone was required to bow down and touch their forehead to the floor and sprinkle rose petals in front of him. He would do the papal wave, But yeah, I thought Barrel Oak was awesome. How did you get involved in that?
Yeah, it was great. What happened, Matt, was I'm going back about 12 years or so ago now. I used to take my wife and my son, who was about 10, 10 or so at the time, I guess it was. Going back there, yeah, well, a little older than that maybe. Anyway, we used to go there and kind of just enjoy a nice few hours out. And it kind of edges on the mountains of Virginia,
right? Yeah,
the Blue Ridge. So beautiful country, and it's actually only about 30 minutes from where I am. It's a little bit out west of me, out Route 81. I'm actually, as I mentioned before, closer to Manassas. This is a little bit west of us.
It's a really pretty area.
Yeah, on the way toward the mountains out there. But anyway, I got to know the main owner there about 12 years ago, and kind of a bucket item list. He said, "Hey, Ron," he said, "you want to get involved with the winery?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" So I was involved with Barrel Oak for about 10 years, and I really enjoyed the mission. We had animal welfare groups there. We had veterans groups there. And it was very, it was just a great time. I got to know a little bit about the wine business, met some nice friends and family. Unfortunately, the pandemic killed us. We had two horrendous years with the pandemic, and the main owner, I was one of about 10 owners or so, but the main owner that owned the majority was originally from California. His father is ill out in California, and decided to get out of the wine business and sell the winery. So I got out about six months ago, but it was a great time. I had 10 years there, met, as I said, great people, and really got to know a little bit about the wine business along the way. So maybe someday I'll get back into it again, but I'm taking a little respite at the time. Actually, just yesterday was at another winery out here in Northern Virginia. Virginia, if you're not familiar, we have about 300 wineries in Virginia.
Yeah.
Most of them are either in kind of the Northern Virginia pocket where I'm located, or of course down in Charlottesville by UVA when Jefferson grew one of the first vineyards.
First wineries, yeah.
So down not too far from you, and I guess even your area has a couple locally.
There's one relatively new, just 2 miles from the place. The wine's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I like Barrel Oak. Now, did somebody buy that? Are they going to try to make a go of it?
Somebody bought it. Yeah, somebody did buy it. They're going to try to turn it. I say turn it around. I hope they keep the mission with the, as I mentioned, the animal groups.
The mission and the atmosphere was really great.
Yeah. So yes, they're attempting to work on it, and I still will certainly go out there, just not as a paid member, so to speak. But the great thing is I have cases of wine behind me that I helped grow, and so you open a bottle. In fact, yesterday I opened the bottle that was from It was 2015, 2015, about 8 years ago. So I can almost remember what I was doing at the time that I opened my 8-year-old bottle of wine. So, and it's still great too. So it was a great time, and enjoyed it during the time there. And unfortunately, I think the pandemic had a lot to do with the main owner wanting to get out of the business and get back to California. Along
That's
with
a bloody shame, man.
some personal issues too, because
Yeah.
we literally were other than selling, remotely, so to speak. The winery was pretty much closed for a year and a half, 2 years, and that's your bread and butter. I mean, if you don't have people going into your
Yeah,
winery,
people,
you're not
you
selling
need
wine.
foot traffic at a winery.
Exactly.
And
So,
here's why. And this is what I liked about Barrel Oak. And I've been to a lot of wineries, but there's only 2 or 3 that you go there and you taste wine and it's something you've never experienced before.
yep,
It's a completely unique flavor
yep.
or quality. And Barrel Oak had 2 of those. As a
Which
matter of
ones did
fact,
you
I
like?
still have a bottle of white
Is it
from Barrel
Barrel
Oak.